Mondays a glimpse of stocking was the dawn of something shocking. Now heaven knows anything goes.
Wait, hold on. Anything goes? Isn't that what's been happening in America for some time now? I think more and more Americans are waking up to this absurdity, and it shows by the overwhelming response we're getting with new volunteers. We hear and see you believe COS is the solution, as big as the problem. So thank you, and let's keep growing this grassroots army. Our vision is to build a strong, engaged army of self-governing activists, and our mission statement is to restore self-governance by recruiting, training, and deploying citizen activists to engage in all levels of government. So, if you've had enough of anything goes, join us every Monday at 7 p.m. as our state director and host, Dale Parrish, will show you how we can actually make a difference by using the Constitution to save the Constitution and our country. So join us now for Indiana Live.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Maringo Mike, for that introduction. As Maringo Mike said, my name's Dale Parrish. I am the state director for Convention of States here in Indiana. Once again, I want to welcome you to our broadcast this evening. I always like to do this. I want to thank everyone once again for the tremendous turnout that we're getting in people volunteering and people wanting to become part of Convention of States. I think you're really proving to us that what we've said all along is that Convention of States is the solution as big as the problem, and I think you're proving that to us. So once again, I want to say thank you for stepping forward to join us here in Convention of States in Indiana. Now, let's talk a little bit about what's going to happen on the broadcast this evening. As I have mentioned before, we are now live streaming also to our YouTube channel, COS Indiana. Now, the main broadcast comes to you through our state Facebook page, Convention of States Indiana. But for some weeks now, we've also been live streaming through our YouTube channel, COS Indiana. So another alternative way to view our broadcast is on our YouTube channel. And I might say now, while you're there, if you are on our YouTube channel and viewing, please, if you haven't already, press that subscribe button and become a subscriber to our YouTube channel so that you can stay on top of things that we post to that YouTube channel. And I'll be talking a little bit more about that a little later on in the broadcast. So, YouTube channel, COS Indiana. Also, what we've introduced here in the past few weeks is we are now offering the audio section of our broadcast here in the form of a podcast, COS Indiana Live Podcast. We started this just a few weeks ago. So basically, it's the audio portion of this broadcast is now available to you in the form of a podcast. Now, where do you find that? If you go to anchor.fm/Dale-Parrish and the number 8, that will get you the podcast. So once this telecast is over, then I will download the audio portion and post it as a podcast. So evidently there are some that prefer to listen to this in the form of a podcast rather than taking the time or fitting it into their schedule in order to view the broadcast. I understand that. I see that all the time. So it's available now in the form of a podcast, and we welcome you to take advantage of that other opportunity. Now, let me just briefly go over the segments of our broadcast tonight so you kind of have an idea of what's going to be going on. In the first segment, we call it the interview segment. And in this segment, we bring on generally a leadership individual from our group here in Indiana. Once in a while, we have some other individuals. Tonight, we have one of those. We have our young lady we call our super volunteer, Debbie Stewart, will be coming on And Debbie's going to give us a civics lesson this evening. Now, Debbie kind of alternates we try to get Debbie on at least once a month. 1 month it may be a constitutional lesson. Then the next month is now going to be a civics lesson. So we're going to have Debbie on here just momentarily, and Debbie will be giving us a civics lesson this evening, and I think you're really gonna enjoy it. Now, in the second segment, I call it the information segment. I'll bring up my PowerPoint. We'll kind of give you some general information about what we're trying to do here in Indiana, what we're all about, what some of the objectives are that we're trying to accomplish. We'll also give you a little peek at what we have planned for next Monday evening's broadcast. So that'll all be in the information segment. And after that segment, then I will try to recognize viewer comments that we have this evening. So if you are viewing either through Facebook or through our YouTube channel, COS Indiana, you can submit a comment or a question, and I'll make every effort to try and get that on the screen here and try to answer that for you. Now, in our fourth segment, I call it the contributors segment. In this segment, we have some individuals here in our organization in Indiana that we've designated as COS Indiana Live contributors. And these are individuals, you might say they maybe have particular interest in things, opinions. They're activists, put it that way. And so what I've done is I've asked them to record a brief comment, a brief piece on what they have on their mind, and I'll play it as a contributor. And one of our regulars is John Ackerman, and John's contributions we call John's Journal. So he's submitting one to me all the time. So I've got a lot of them to play. So we're going to be playing another one tonight from John's Journal. I think you're really going to enjoy that, I'm sure. And in the final segment, I call it the invitation segment. We'll kind of wrap things up for the evening and give you some more information about what Convention of States is all about. Play a video that seems to be very, very good. I've got a lot of good feedback on this video. And then finally, I'm going to invite you to join us here in Convention of States in Indiana. And I'm going to tell you how to go about to do that. So that will be in the final segment, and that's what I call the invitation segment. So without further ado, let's get into our first. Let me take that invitation off. And let's get into our first segment with our super volunteer, Debbie Stewart. So let me bring Debbie up. Hi, Debbie.
Hi, Dale.
So thank you for joining us tonight. Always enjoy having you on.
Pleasure to be here.
And Debbie is going to, as I mentioned, going to give us a civics lesson this evening. And Debbie, you told me that you're going to be talking about our founding documents. So Debbie, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you, Dale. Okay, so we have 3 treasured documents from our founding fathers: the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. And so I'm going to go through each one of those in here in a little bit. But before I do, I just want to talk about them as a general group. These documents outline much of what the word America means, both to our citizens and to the world abroad. In a short span of only 13 years, all 3 of these documents were written, and they continue to form the basis of our American government and the way we live our lives. The Declaration was written in 1776. The Constitution was written in 1787. And the Bill of Rights were added to the Constitution in 1789. All 3 of these wonderful documents are all found in our National Archives National Archives.
Okay, I don't recall caves anymore.
Yeah, I'm not sure what an archive is, but I do know what an archive is. And,
we knew what you meant. We knew.
I know. Thank you. And they're all in Washington, D.C. at the National Mall, so you can check them all out there. Okay, so it is notable before I get into the Declaration that talking about constitutions, our Constitution is 234 years old. But it's very interesting statistics that the average lifespan of a Constitution across the world, starting in 1789 till now, is only 17 years,
That's
which is
amazing.
amazing.
That is amazing. I've heard you say that before, but I love to be reminded of that statistic. That is really, really amazing, isn't it?
It is, and only actually 7% of the ones written don't even make it to their second birthday.
Wow.
We like to have a constitution for like a year.
Yeah.
Thailand is a good example. They wrote theirs in 1997. It only lasted 9 years, and then they threw it out. So we have a lot to be thankful for, that our Constitution has lasted a very long time. It is still effective today, just as much today as it was back then. So, okay, so let's talk about the first document, the Declaration of Independence. And so the Declaration, I said, was written in 1776, but how did it come to being? What was the purpose? So the Continental Congress in 1774, they tried to find ways to persuade Great Britain to treat the colonies fairly, but they failed. And so several years later, during the Revolutionary War, the Second Continental Congress did the same thing. They tried to get with Great Britain and resolve the differences between the colonies and England. But again, this failed. And so then a man named Richard Henry Lee in June of 1776 and made a motion that the 13 colonies needed to declare themselves independent from Great Britain. So they assigned 5 men, of which Thomas Jefferson and John Adams were 2, and they called it the Committee of 5, to write a document declaring to the world the reasons the colonies should be independent. Now, they felt there were 3 main reasons to write this document. The first was to secure our foreign alliances, because that was a big step to dissolve all strings from Great Britain. The second reason was to inform the colonists what was the crown doing, what was the king doing, what were his actions that warranted this. And third, they wanted to stop any reconciliation sentiment. In other words, they didn't want the colonists going, oh, well, we can reconcile with them. It's going to be okay. They just wanted to nip that in the bud. So on July 4, 1776, members of the Second Continental Congress voted to approve the final version of the Declaration. So what did the Declaration say? Most of it was written by Thomas Jefferson, so he's typically awarded that role. But it did 2 things. It informed Great Britain that the colonies would no longer submit to their authority. And secondly, it announced to the world what America's beliefs about freedom were. It had 3 main sections, okay, that I would call them sections. So this is Debbie Stewart's section dividing device. There was a preamble where they stated why the document was being written, the necessity of the document. And then the main body of the Declaration is listing all the grievances they had against the king, and there were 27 of them. So they took their time in writing them out.
That's quite interesting to read all those grievances.
It is.
It's quite interesting.
Yeah, he really did the colonies wrong. If you read
did. He sure did.
And they even tried to work with the king in Great Britain, and he just wouldn't bend at all.
Yeah.
And then the third and final section of the Declaration is the resolution of independence. We hereby declare ourselves independent. And you might recognize some words from the preamble where we hold these truths to be self-evident, and it goes on. That comes from the very beginning of the Declaration.
Right.
The Declaration also declared inside of it our faith in God, the equality of all people, and the rights of all citizens. And for a lot of nations, this was foreign. We were really making a stand. Most of the men who signed the Declaration signed it on August 2nd, but a few did before and some did later. One man even signed it 5 years later.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, 1781. But 56 men signed it, and they so firmly believed that they pledged to one another their lives, their fortunes, and their honor. And a lot of those men lost everything they had.
Yes, including their lives.
Right.
Yes, that's interesting in itself. We did a little bit of that. I think we did that on a broadcast. Actually, it's been some time ago. Brought in a couple of the other leaders here in the state, and we talked about some of the men that signed the Declaration and what happened to them. And some of the stories were very, very terrible, very heartbreaking.
Yes.
They in fact did pledge their wealth, their honor, everything, and some of them lost it all.
It was very costly, and they meant it when they did that pledge.
Yeah.
We say pledges a lot now,
right?
But back then it meant everything to them.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Yeah.
But just real quick, to end this kind of section on the Declaration, a couple of the grievances against the king, it was King George III, is he withheld approval to the legislation. His governors refused to endorse the laws the colonists came up with. He dissolved the representative houses that they came up with. He obstructed immigration. They wanted a lot of Germans to be able to come over. He obstructed that. He had standing armies right here in the colonies to do whatever he wanted with without the approval. So he just kind of was just rolling over everybody. The steamroller king, I guess. Okay. Okay. So the Declaration was a great document that paved the way to our independence. And that brings us to our second document, which is the Constitution. Because this same Second Continental Congress also got together to figure out and discuss a government for their new nation. They did not want that strong central government that they came from over in Britain. So in 1777, they adopted their first constitution called the Articles of Confederation. So they were ready to get started. The problem with the articles were they were weak. Okay, they were weak in a lot of different areas. So they called a constitutional convention in the summer of 1787. They invited delegates from all 13 colonies. All of them showed up except for Rhode Island opted out. So they did not attend. And over a 5-month period, they wrote the Constitution. And at the end, 39 men signed it. So the 55 delegates kind of came and went throughout the whole summer. They were never all there at the same time, but George Washington presided. Benjamin Franklin was the oldest. They had some young ones too, and everyone in between. James Madison is the one that is given the honor of being called the father of the Constitution, and Governor Morris actually wrote the final draft. Okay, so on June 21st, 1788, it was ratified when New Hampshire became the 9th state to ratify it. But it didn't go into effect until March 4th of 1789. Okay, so that's just a little background. So now what's in the Constitution? So again, the Debbie Stewart divide up the document into whatever sections came along, and I found 4 main sections, which I think if you look it up, you would feel the same way. The first section is the preamble. The second section, the main body, is they wrote 7 articles about what were the restrictions on government. Then there's a section after the articles that are all the amendments, okay? And then the 4th section is just the signatures of the 39 men.
Okay.
So just want to go over these real quick. The first section, the preamble, lists many of the purposes why the government was establishing this Constitution. I'll read all 6 to you real quick. In the preamble, more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty. So that kind of outline was real quick preamble. You can memorize it in no time. But the second section were all the articles, and there are 7 of them. And the 7 articles, the first one is for the legislative branch, which is the Congress. The second article, executive branch, which is the president. The third article, the judicial branch, which is the courts and the judges. And then Article 4 is the relations of states. Article 5 is the amendment process, which is where Convention of States comes in. And Article 6 is about the supremacy clause and general provisions. And Article 7 talks about the ratification process. So these guys that wrote this were smart enough to know that if anytime we want to amend the Constitution, we have to go through the U.S. Congress, we're in trouble. because there are some things that should be done that they really don't want to do because it doesn't maybe benefit them. So they came up with a second method, which is a convention of states.
That's right.
If they have 2/3 of the states, they can call a convention. So to propose amendments. So that's why we're here, right?
That's right.
Okay, the third section was the amendments, of which the first 10 are called the Bill of Rights. I'm going to get into that in a minute. And then there are 27 total amendments, and the signatures were the last section. And the Constitution was actually 4 parchment pages long. Okay, any questions on that?
Nope.
All right. Great. Okay, so the Bill of Rights was our last treasured document, and really they just added this to the Constitution. And really the purpose of the Bill of Rights was to protect the citizens against excessive power of the federal government. When they were reading the proposed Constitution, the states, a lot of the people in the states believed that the Constitution should give more rights, just in case the federal government became too strong and wanted to take away their rights. So it was kind of a double protection. So they came up with 350 proposed amendments, and then James Madison took them all and blended them and moved them around and proposed 12 from those 350 to Congress. Congress passed all 12, but when they sent it to the states passed 10 of them.
10, okay.
And so now we have our first 10 amendments of the Bill of Rights, and then we have amendments 11 through 27. The last amendment, Amendment 27, was passed in 1992, and it basically says that if Congress wants to give themselves a raise, they have to wait till the next election cycle for it to go into being.
So each one listed in the Bill of Rights is actually an amendment.
Yes, they're just
It's one of the 27 amendments, but the first 10 are considered the Bill of Rights. Okay.
And the 11 through 27, I call them the remaining amendments.
You mentioned back on the Constitution, you've probably heard this said many times that, the first 3 articles in the Constitution lay out the legislature, the executive branch, and the judicial branch, that a very significant percentage of American people cannot name those 3 branches of government. I find that very, very sad.
Yes.
But I heard that mentioned on a news report just the other day, and I've heard it before, but that is pretty sad, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we're trying to correct that here in Convention of States.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. And in the classes I teach, I always make them write out all 7 articles, what they are.
That's right. Good.
So, yeah.
All right.
Well, so just as a conclusion then, these 3 documents are still timely and effective. Some today say that they're outdated. There's a movement that's saying that these documents are outdated, but that is certainly not true. These documents are timeless. They were written with much wisdom and intelligence and forward thinking. And I think the issue is we need to learn to stick to the Constitution as it was written by our founding fathers, and we need to hold people accountable, our government accountable, to follow it. And it's very interesting. I just saw an article today that 2 Nevada counties go constitutional, and it says elected officials have declared that the Bill of Rights will be upheld in their jurisdiction, even if it means standing against unconstitutional acts by state and federal authorities. So they saying you will go to prison, you will get in trouble, you will be, what's the word that you dealt with as criminal activity if you try to change or make them try to alter what their Constitution says. So, hey, kudos to them for standing up 2 counties in Nevada.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, Debbie. I got a couple comments here that I wanted to put up while you're on. Okay.
Sure.
And this is from one of our new district captains. As a matter of fact, Cheryl was on as a guest on last week's broadcast. She's saying, good evening, everyone. So also our Susan Lyon, our newsletter editor, is saying to everyone that the June newsletter went out today. So just thought I'd get that one in there too.
Absolutely.
But Rick Lyon, our events coordinator, is asking, did the law requiring the teaching of civics in Indiana high schools get passed? I believe Melba Kaiser testified before the Indiana House in favor of this bill, House Bill 13841. I don't think that was the number of it, but yes, it did get passed. It passed unanimously, and this was a bill that Convention of States did support. We did officially throw our support behind this bill, and I believe it's that at least one semester of civics be taught. I think it's at the middle school level.
Yes.
Is it? Okay. So we were working on this quite diligently, and Melba Kaiser, one of our district captains, played a big role in this, was very interested. Melba's very, very interested in education in our state. And yes, she did testify before I believe it was a Senate committee, I believe she testified before, did an excellent job in her testimony to get this bill passed. So I just thought I would bring that up. And
thank you, Melba, because boy, do we need it. Because one semester of government in high school is nowhere near enough to teach these kids about their country.
That's right. That's right.
Mm-mm.
Now you might all you need to know, Debbie does teach this, and as a homeschool teacher, right, Debbie?
Mm-hmm.
Or you were at least.
I still am. I found out today I'm still teaching my civics classes, and I'm teaching the U.S. Constitution this fall.
Oh, you are.
Super excited.
Well, good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. Got one more comment here from Gary Harbaugh. Gary says, "Good program. Thank you, Dale and Debbie."
Thanks,
So,
Gary.
Of course, folks, Debbie's doing all the work here. It's not me. So anyway, well, Debbie, thank you very much once again for an excellent lesson. We'll look forward to seeing you. Won't see you in July, but you are coming back in August. I believe it's August 9th, I think, is the date we had picked out.
Yeah.
And now that's going to be, you'll be going back to constitutional literacy for that
Yes.
segment, right? Or that lesson.
Yes.
Okay. So be looking forward to that. So Debbie, thank you once again.
Thanks for having me, Dale.
Have a good evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, Debbie, let me get back to our banners and let me remove that banner. All right. Always enjoy having Debbie on. I just always enjoy, we always have, I think, a good program when we have Debbie on to give us a lesson. Okay, I want to get now into we went a little bit long in that segment, so I want to get on to our second segment, which is the information segment. So let me bring up my PowerPoint and let's get started on that. We'll kind of skim through this a little faster than we normally would. Once again, our vision statement here in Indiana is the same as our national vision statement, and that's to build a strong, engaged army of self-governing activists. Very, very important that you understand that, self-governing activists. Our mission statement here in Indiana is to restore self-governance by recruiting, training, and deploying citizen activists to engage in all levels of government. That's the part of self-governance, folks, is getting involved. Objectives that we set forth here in Indiana for 2021. I won't go through every one of these. We're very close to realizing all of these objectives that we've set forth here for 2021. And you'll be hearing more about this as we go on. But these were the objectives that we set forth going into 2021. We're going to be in September, we're going to be doing another strategy meeting, coming up with objectives that we want to achieve in 2022. So we got to keep going here. Resources that we have available to us. You've heard us talk about our national website, conventionofstates.com. Our state webpage embedded in that national website. Facebook, our state Facebook page, Convention of States Indiana. Of course, you've heard us talk about our YouTube channel, very much an educational resource. We actually have 2 podcasts that are available. The Free to Be Free podcast, which is done by our state legislative liaison, Paul Phillips. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the audio portion of our Monday broadcast will now be available in a podcast form, COS Indiana Live Podcast. We're also on Parler at D.O. Parish, Instagram, Twitter, and of course our state newsletter. Susan just mentioned in a comment that the newsletter has gone out. If you're a supporter of Convention of States here in Indiana and you've opted to receive emails, then if you did that, you will receive this state newsletter. And folks, I'm telling you, Susan and our state communications coordinator, Ken Kashuba, they are doing a terrific job on this state newsletter. We've gotten, actually, in Convention of States, we've gotten some national attention on how professional and how good our state newsletter is. So I encourage you to opt in to get those emails and take a look at that state newsletter. I think you're going to really enjoy that. A couple upcoming events that I wanted to mention to you. A couple district captains, Fred Dennison and Gary Reignauer, are going to be making presentations at Bass and Bucks in Wabash, Indiana on June 19th and June 20th. That's a Saturday and Sunday. So they will be there making a presentation on Convention of States. So if you're in that area, you want to take advantage of that. Roundtable meetings. This is something that I have been announcing, and this is going to be coming up on June 28th. Now, what we're doing here is we're going to devote on every 4th Monday of a month, we're going to devote the entire Convention COS Indiana Live broadcast. We're going to devote it to this roundtable meeting. It's called a roundtable meeting, basically a virtual town hall meeting. We're going to have guests. We're going to have panel discussions. We're going to have some education materials on there. We're going to have questions about topics that people are interested in. So, like I said, it's going to be very much like a town hall meeting, okay? And I want to play a little promo that we've put together to give you an idea of what this might entail. So this will be very, very quick. All right, good. I hope you enjoyed that. That is a video that was put together by our communications coordinator, Ken Kashuba. Let me get back to my PowerPoint there. And so I think Ken did a great job on that. This is kind of what we're going to be talking about on our roundtable meeting. So you want to be sure that you've put that on your calendar for June 28th. Now that will be broadcast Just like our broadcast is coming to you this evening, it'll be coming to you through our state Facebook page, Convention of States Indiana, and also our YouTube channel, COS Indiana. So check us out. Next Monday, our broadcast next Monday evening, June 21st, we're going to have another one of our new district captains, Christina McMurray. We're very, very impressed with Christina. I think she's going to be a great district captain for us. She is the new district captain for Indiana House District 65. So be sure and tune in next Monday evening to meet our new district captain, Christina McMurray. All right. Let's go back to our in this next segment. I told you I wanted to recognize viewer comments. So let me recognize a few here that maybe we missed the first time around. George Ward. George is our state grassroots coordinator. So George is coming in this evening saying, wow, big crowd. I'm not sure what he's referring to, but thanks, George, for tuning in. And let's see what else we got here. Susan has mentioned about the newsletter. I think Cheryl Schottmeyer, another new district captain, saying that the newsletter was awesome. So she's already seen the newsletter and commented on how good that was. So thank you very much, Cheryl, for your comment. Thank you very much. All right, let's move on then to our next segment, which is the contributors segment. And in this segment, I want to bring up our John Ackerman for another contribution in John's Journal. So let me bring that up and play that for you.
John Ackerman again for Convention of States Indiana. One of the greatest presidents of the 20th century was Ronald Reagan. And of the many wonderful, quotable things that he said, this is one that stands out today. Quoting Reagan now, "I've always believed that a lot of trouble in the world would disappear if we were talking to each other instead of about each other." Hand signs are my invention. But listen to the wisdom there. We kind of like to talk about other people. You know, we used to get on the phone and gossip. Now we do it through text messages. And people make posts on social media lambasting other people. You know what? That's just a bunch of childish nonsense. It needs to go away. We need to come right back to what Reagan said, talk to each other, and to come back to what Jesus said when he said, if you have something against your brother, go to him and tell him.
All right. That was John's Journal. Thank you, John, for that. Appreciate it. Well, let's get in now to the final segment, and this is the invitation segment. Got another short video for you here. This kind of gives you, I think, a good flavor as to what Convention of States is all about. I'm going to follow it up with a little more information, but I think this kind of really gets to the heart of Convention of States. I hope you enjoy this.
About Congress. Hey, Congress is full of people who don't know what the hell they're doing, but want to control your lives.
The longer they stay in, the more connected they become to special interests, and special interests are destroying our nation.
They give each other what they want, and they stick the taxpayer with the bill.
What's going to happen to the millennials? Unfunded liabilities plus debt now is $144 trillion.
Politicians come in and say they're going to change it, and they never, ever do.
We're not going to surrender the greatest country on the face of the earth and turn it into another failed European experiment.
The question is today, will we use the Constitution to save the Constitution?
Our framers in particular foresaw that this day would come. The Peach State is making history. Lawmakers passed a preliminary measure today for a convention of states.
The Missouri House passed a measure calling for a convention of states.
The Convention of States.
The Article 5 Convention of States.
Convention of States.
Convention of States.
Convention of the States.
How does a convention of states?
Convention of the States.
The Convention of States.
Convention of States.
The States Project.
Mark Meckler. Now, you run a group trying to build a movement. You're saying the work is being done across this country to get to that 34 state threshold. And whether Washington wants it or not, the people hold a convention to limit the powers of the federal government.
It's right there in Article 5.
Article 5 of the Constitution was included by the founders for this exact time.
Where Washington would so depart from our principles
That only we, the people, could cut it down to size. So I think it may well take a convention to wake them up.
I've been a longtime supporter of the Convention of States to reestablish the sort of guiding principles of the Constitution.
The Convention of the States empowers the people of America to get some things done that they've long wanted.
By using Article 5 of the Constitution, we can pursue reforms such as a balanced budget amendment.
It's term limits on Congress, term limits on judges, and a balanced budget amendment for America.
It's becoming 11th state to call for a convention to limit federal government power.
The Arkansas House passed a resolution that calls for a convention of states.
30 states, Steve, 30, have either passed it in their state legislature or are actively considering it. So there is a pathway to that number.
This literally nothing like this has been done in American history.
If you want to put government back in check, it's only going to be us, the people, do it.
And so this is the last chance I think we the people have to get back in the control of the constitutional reins of our republic.
Inspire them to make sure that we pass on a better America.
That is the next revolution we need.
No, we have to do this.
Governor Greg Abbott is calling for more states to get on board with a push for a convention of states.
Tomorrow we're going to work to make sure that we add the 13th, 14th, 15th, all the way up to the 34th state.
A year, 10 years, 100 years, whatever it takes.
If the federal government won't do it, then we will.
Go to.
All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little video on Convention of States. I think it was very, very good. I want to bring up again on my PowerPoint here and give you a little more information. What that video covers to a large extent is what we call the basics of Convention of States: the problem, the solution, and the plan. And the problem, as mentioned in the video, national debt, government overreach, term limits. The solution, of course, is to call a convention of states. And we have, of course, a plan as to how to bring that about. We need to get 34 states to call this convention. We have 15 states that have signed on and passed the resolution calling for the convention. And yes, Indiana is one of those states. So we need to get to 34 in order for this to happen. And it is going to happen, but it's going to take some more time. Now, I won't go into any further detail on this tonight, but I would refer you to this national website again, conventionofstates.com. Click on resources, and there's a wealth of information there on not only the basics that I've talked about here, but as well as many other things about our program, Convention of States. So I really encourage you to check this out. I want to also mention the importance of self-governance. This is very, very important. This is the we the people part. This is where we encourage everyone in Convention of States to get involved in your local government at whatever level. I don't care if it's local government, if it's your community, your neighborhood, your local school board, whatever you have an opportunity to get involved, please do it. Now, becoming a supporter of Convention of States is an act of self-governance, I believe, and that's recognized as being a self-governance. But we want you and encourage you to get more involved and exercise your right and your responsibility of self-governance. So we encourage you and ask you to to acknowledge that and get involved. Now, I want to tell you now how to get involved in Convention of States here in Indiana, how to become a supporter. Here's this national website again. Go to the national website and open an account, sign the petition. Now that makes you a supporter, okay? And that's a very, very important step. Becoming a supporter of Convention of States. Very, very important. Now, if you want to get further involved, and I hope you do, click on the menu selection at the top, Take Action, scroll down to where it says Become a Leader, and look at the various volunteer positions that we have available. If there's one there that is of interest to you, open it up, read about it. If you're really interested, go ahead and make application. Now, you're not obligated in any way, so don't worry about that. But when you make application, then your name comes up on a report that we see every day, and one of us will be in contact with you to further discuss your interest in that particular position. So also keep in mind, now these positions will require different amounts of time. Some require very little, others require much more time. So you're the only one that knows how much time you have available to devote to Convention of States. But we would really love to have your involvement. I will say I'm going to stress one position that we really want to see more people to take on, and that's a district captain. That's a very, very important position in our organization, that of district captain. So if you want to commit some time to Convention of States, take a look at that position. All right. Now, all the others are very important too, but I want to stress that particular position. I think we would really enjoy seeing more and more people becoming district captains. Well, folks, that's pretty much our program for this evening. I do want to make one last particular point, and that is with regard to getting involved with us to make a Convention of States happen. And the thing I want to stress to you is when you get involved in this, making this happen, a Convention of States, this has never been done before, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, there have been conventions of states held throughout history, but there's never been an Article 5 Convention of States for the purpose of proposing amendments to the Constitution. So when this happens, and it will, we're going to be making history. And I would love to have everyone involved in this because I think it's going to be a momentous opportunity and event, making history, calling for a Convention of States for the purpose of proposing amendments to the Constitution. Folks, that's it for this evening. I want to thank you for joining us, and please put us on your calendar for next Monday evening, every Monday evening at 7 p.m. And we will be trying to bring you more and more information on Convention of States here in Indiana, what we're all about. And remember now, the fourth Monday of every month is going to be a roundtable meeting. So that'll be a very, very interesting, different format, different event. So that'll be very, very interesting. And I hope you put that on your calendars and can tune in. So with that, I'm going to say good night, everyone. Have a good evening. Good night.